So there's something I've been thinking about for a while, and it's this idea of stealing licks, taking licks from other players and copying them. And this kind of has a bad connotation because you don't want to steal from people, right? You want to be original. But the truth is that all great musicians steal licks. It's just the name of the game. There's no way you're going to be able to come up with your own style without taking from other people. But the real trick is to be able to steal from other players, from other musicians, and be able to change it and make it your own. So in this lesson, I'm going to take a lick from a guitarist I love, a really famous lick, and I'm going to change it and alter it and slowly kind of try to make it my own and show that process. Now you can use any of these ideas I'm going to share on any number of licks from your favorite players. Just depends on the kind of music you want to play. Hopefully some of these ideas will be helpful for you. So like, subscribe, hit the bell notification, all that good stuff. And let's get into it. The lick I want to look at in this video is the classic Eric Johnson 5s lick. It looks like this. This lick is right out of your first box pentatonic shape. In this case, I'm in D minor, the saddest of all keys. The lick looks like this. It's a 5-note sequence, and what we're going to do is do a downstroke at the end into another downstroke to start the next pattern. So down, up, down, up, down, 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 up. So you have an odd pattern, but it starts with a downstroke each time, which is really cool. If you want to get more into the picking on this, I highly recommend Troy Grady's Cracking the Code video on Eric Johnson. On this particular lick, he talks a lot about it. Now, this lesson isn't really about the sort of picking technique necessarily anyway, so if you want to dive deep into that, go check out the Cracking the Code video. But it's a cool idea, right, to do this odd pattern, but have it start with a downstroke each time. Now, rhythmically, I usually do this as 16th notes, so it kind of cycles around the beat in a weird way. So 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a... But you could also do it as quintuplets, so each pattern fitting in one beat. 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5. You can even do it as 16th note triplets. Triplet, 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 triplet. Really cool. Lots of different rhythmic permutations you can do of it. But that's the main lick that we're going to take and change here. One thing you'll notice is as I speed up this lick, I'll start to incorporate some pull-offs, especially as the patterns get more complicated. Now, when I first learned this lick, I thought it was done with pull-offs because it sounded so smooth. Of course, later on, I learned Eric Johnson was doing economy picking in some cases, and just his tone was making it sound really smooth. So oftentimes I'll play this lick with pull-offs, especially as it gets faster. So I'll go down, pull-off, up, pull-off, down, down. Just feel like I can get it faster and cleaner that way. And I played it that way for so many years, it's just kind of stuck in my head. So as the left-hand patterns get more complicated, that's kind of what I'm going to do here. But the idea with this lick is not even the exact picking pattern. It's really more that I'm going to take this lick and try to change it. And in fact, that idea of using pull-offs instead of picking is kind of changing the lick. It's an accident, right? I'm playing the lick incorrectly, but because I'm playing it incorrectly, I'm already making it different than Eric Johnson. I'm kind of making it my own. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And for me, it's just going to work a lot better when we start to get these really weird left-hand patterns that I'm going to change this into. I sometimes also will do this with hybrid picking. So I'll start each of the 5 patterns with my middle finger. A little bit more of an accented note that way. So I'll use either of those techniques as well as maybe the picking version too, depending on the patterns I'm playing. This lick is right out of the first box of the minor pentatonic scale, so you can of course use this in the other 4 boxes of the pentatonic scale. This is something Eric Johnson would actually do. Here it is in box 2. Or in box 5. Fingerings get a little bit different, but the same concept, right? So let's start to change this lick. The first thing I'm going to do is to do more of a stretched out pentatonic. I really like these 3-note per string pentatonics. But I'm just going to cut out the middle note with a 3-note per string pentatonic. So I'm going to stretch out my pinky, just move it up into the next box. And I'll keep the rest of the notes the same. So that first note of the 5s pattern is higher. like that. Sounds a little bit different than what Eric Johnson would do. Sometimes he would stretch out, but not in a row like that. You can even repeat these top parts. It sounds really cool. You could stretch out the other notes too, so I'd do it like this. So I'm reaching into that next pentatonic box for every single note. And you get a lot of repeating notes that way. Same note on a different string. Really crazy sound. Now, if you're picking this like Eric Johnson, you have to keep notes on adjacent strings because you have that little economy pick in there. With the pull-off approach, I can do some string skipping, which sounds cool too. So I can do like this. Kind of weird to play, but it sounds cool. I could even stretch that out. It sounds wild. Now, so far, we haven't left the minor pentatonic scale, so to really start to change this lick, I'm going to try to incorporate some different scale sounds. Now, this is weird because pentatonic is set up as 2 notes per string, right? And this is a 2 note per string lick. But I want to use it with the major scale, for example, which is a 7-note scale instead of the pentatonic, which is a 5-note scale. So I'm going to have to change the fingering in a way to make the major scale a 2 note per string scale. So I'm going to use what I call pentatonic modal shapes or modal pentatonic shapes. Now, this isn't something I came up with. I've seen other lessons on it. Maybe I should do one myself. But the idea is I'm going to construct a scale that has all of the important notes from the major scale in this example, but it's going to be 2 notes per string, so it lays out on the guitar like a pentatonic scale. So this is the major scale shape I'm using here, and this is C major. So we've got the major third and the fourth and the leading tone. Now, it doesn't have every note from the major scale, but it has those really important notes. Now, if you want to know what the important notes are in each mode, I did a huge series on the modes a few months back. You can check those out. But in this case, I want to make sure I have the third and the fourth and the seventh and the root, right? So there's my 2 note per string major scale shape. And now that I have that, I can put this 5s lick into that. Like so. Very cool sound. It has a little bit of that flavor, but it sounds very different because this isn't the sort of scale sound that Eric Johnson would use, right? But it still has that smooth sound to it. There's a couple other modal pentatonic shapes that I like. Lydian, for example, which is just 1 note different from that major scale example. So this has that sharp 4. This is one I use all the time. This shape, and actually that particular lick. Just sounds so cool in that Lydian sound. And it lays under the fingers pretty well. I could also do a mixed Lydian sort of sound. Or I could do a more exotic kind of scale. I'm going to do Lydian dominant, which is the 4th mode of melodic minor. What the scale sounds like. Here's my 2 note per string shape. Like that. So anything that I can do 2 notes per string on the guitar, I can use with this particular Eric Johnson lick. One thing I like to do 2 note per string is these 7th arpeggios. So here's the basic shape. This is D minor 7. I can take that same shape down to the next octave. And again, these are really good octave repeating shapes. Really nice ways to play arpeggios that don't involve sweeping or string skipping. So I can take this exact pattern and use the 5s lick. The fingerings get a little bit weird here, but it does work. Or I could do this with a dominant 7th arpeggio, so D7. Or if I did a different inversion, I could do like a major 7. It's a very cool sound. Not easy to play though. These are really cool sounds. Great way to play arpeggios that doesn't sound like... It sounds very different to go. One last one I like to do is a fully diminished arpeggio. We think of this as being more like a shred metal sort of thing. Right, that kind of idea. But you can lay these out 2 notes per string as well, and then incorporate this 5s pattern. Close enough. Along the same lines as those 2 note per string arpeggios, I often do these stretched out pentatonics in octaves. So a shape like this, which is D minor pentatonic, I'll repeat it an octave up, and then again. I can do the 5s pattern with that. Some big stretches there, and the shapes are really weird to play with this particular pattern, but it sounds cool. One last variation on this lick is to do a symmetrical pattern. So I'm just going to take the frets 10 and 16, which is like this weird tritone sound, and I'm going to play this 5s lick with only those frets. Really wild outside sound, something you could use in a cool fusion context or maybe a crazy metal tune. So far, we actually haven't changed this original 5s lick at all. I've just done it through some different harmonic contexts. So now let's actually change the lick. And one of the best ways to do this is to reverse it. So far, everything has been descending. So we're going to do an ascending version of this lick. It's basically the complete reverse of the 5s lick. It's 1 note on a string, sweep to the next string, 2 notes, and then 2 notes again. So 1, 2, 2. Down, down, up, and then I can continue that up. This is pentatonic as well. Now, this is not my own lick. I actually got this one from Sean Lane, but it's essentially the reversed pattern of the Eric Johnson lick. And this one I will hammer on usually instead of the picking approach. And I could do this with some different patterns. I could do the D minor 7. That arpeggio. I can combine the original 5s lick with this ascending lick into this big looping pattern. This is all pentatonic. See if I can do that a little faster. Very cool idea, and something you can kind of just loop over and over again to use these 5s patterns down and then back up. I could use the ascending and descending patterns in an arpeggio shape as well, so I'm going to use D minor 7. Descend. Here's another crazy one. This is a major 7 arpeggio, D major 7 with this ascending and descending 5s. This one is really tricky to do up to speed, but I'll do my best. Really cool sound, and it's very far removed from that original Eric Johnson idea, but it's really the same kind of outline of the lick. I'm just doing it in different ways. Let's change this up rhythmically a little bit. So far, we've only done just groups of 5 over and over again. Now, obviously, when you're playing licks, you're not just going to do one sequence continuously. You're going to mix it up with other things. One thing Eric Johnson would do a lot is to combine 4s and 5s. So you would have just the first 4 notes of the 5 pattern. That's your group of 4. And then you do the 5 pattern. So 4, 5, 4, 5, 4, 5, 4, 5. I don't think I can probably pick this very well, but yeah, it's not going to happen. Now I could take that same idea to one of these modal pentatonic shapes. Let's do the Lydian one. You could also just add a couple of notes to this pattern. I'll just repeat the first 2 notes. You get a pattern of 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Like so. One thing I might do is to change that top note around a little bit for more of a melodic feel. So just doing some chromatic ideas. I could take that same idea to the Lydian modal shape. Definitely a weird shape, but it sounds really nice. One last idea is to combine this 5s lick with some 3-note per string playing. So I'll do this sequence here. So you have that 5s pattern and then some more straightforward 3-note per string shred style sequencing. I'm not really that great at this lick yet because I just came up with it, but this is cool because it mixes some of that classic shreddy 3-note per string stuff with the smoother 2-note per string ideas. So I've put together my own big lick that combines a bunch of these ideas together. This is done over my own backing track. This is one I made for the Dorian mode a few months back during my modal lessons. So here it is played fast, and then I'll break it down. It starts with some 3-note per string picking as a pickup. Then it's into this pattern, which is a 5s pattern. It's not the Eric Johnson one, but it's another arpeggio one that I use. It's just a D minor 7 arpeggio. Then it's straight into the 5s pattern on an F major 7 arpeggio. Once we get here, we're going to start ascending with this D minor 6. Which then transforms into one of those stretched out pentatonics. Once we reach the top note, I'm going to do this 7s pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Little position shift up to a 5s pattern with some stretching and then a big string skip. So all together. So there's a few ideas of how you can take a lick and turn it into something that sounds a little bit more like you. Now, bear in mind, this is something that takes kind of a long time to develop. It wasn't something I was able to do right away. Over years of playing and studying lots of different players, I'm kind of able to just take these things and turn them into something that maybe sounds a little bit more like me. So it just takes a lot of trial and error and a lot of time and practice. And there's a lot of value to be found in this. It's obviously good to practice licks verbatim too and to cover solos kind of exactly like the original artist. You learn a lot doing that, and I still do that sometimes. What I like to do now, though, is to take ideas that I think are really cool and see if I can incorporate them into my own playing. And this is something I've done with this 5s lick, for example, but I've done it with lots of other things too. And it's a really, really good exercise. Now I want to take a look at a lick that draws inspiration from 3 different guitarists. This is from the solo to my song, The Great Stereopticon, which I put out a couple of years ago. It has a fun music video. You can go check that out. And the lick sounds like this. This lick is over a D major chord. It's kind of a D mixolydian sound. And the first part of the lick looks like this. This part is built on an arpeggio shape that I got from Paul Gilbert. It's this major shape where he skips strings. Really cool idea. You get some cool sequences. And what he would do sometimes is to add in some extra notes on the G and E string. I think specifically from this raw video of technical difficulties that you can find on YouTube. It's a pretty famous one. He does this kind of lick with this shape. Really cool idea, and he does this tap and slide thing for a pretty wild sound. Now what I do in my lick is this. And this is something I stole from Jeff Loomis, another great metal guitarist, one of my favorites. I remember watching some videos where Loomis would sweep, tap, pull off, and then slide up to the same note he tapped. So I thought that was a really cool sound to do the slide up to the same note you just played. So I did that here. And then from here, it moves down to this shape. And I tap again here, and do that same shape down an octave. And then into the next part of the solo. And that last part is something I kind of stole from Guthrie Govan. I learned it first ascending, where he would play like the same shape, up an octave. That kind of an idea. It wasn't those exact notes, but it's that idea of doing the same shape in octaves. So here I do the same idea here. So I'm really stealing from 3 different guitarists here. Gilbert, Loomis, Guthrie Govan. Now, obviously, when I'm doing this and coming up with these ideas, I'm not thinking about that necessarily. These are licks that I've kind of ingrained into my playing over the years. And when I came to write this big tapping thing, it just kind of happened. But from my studying of these different guitarists and trying to take their ideas and change them, I'm able to come up with these kind of ideas that draw inspiration from multiple guitarists. So hopefully it doesn't sound like I'm ripping off just one. It sounds like maybe I'm ripping off multiple people, but maybe sounds a little bit like myself. So there are some ideas for how you can steal licks from your favorite players. This is something that all good musicians do, and it's a really important skill to be able to take your influences and to try to morph them into something that sounds a little bit more like you. I also do this as a composer as well, to steal compositional ideas from my favorite composers and put it into my own music. So hopefully some of these ideas were helpful for you. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe, hit the bell notification, like, comment, share, all of that good stuff. And I'll see you all in the next video. Till then, stay proggy.